Good morning from Vietnam. Thanks a lot for spending your evening with me and the audience of the Inside Sharing Show, Jim. On behalf of the listeners, I want to say thank you very much.
I'm very pleased to be here with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Jim, you and Patty are putting Vietnam on the list for the next 1 or 2 years to visit this beautiful country. So the next time that you travel here, please let us know. You have a new friend, a new family here waiting for for you guys and take you guys around town. Okay.
Well, I thank you for that, and that the same is true for you. If you and your family come to Canada, to Toronto, you have friends here that will host you in the same way. So I want to be just as gracious as you are.
Thank you very much. And in our culture, Jim, it's a great honor if we can have our speakers to introduce a little bit about themselves. So, would you please share with us a little bit about who you are and the works that you do?
Yes, of course. My name is Jim Reid, and I just retired from a very big job. I work for as chief HR officer for Rogers Communications, which is a big telecommunications and media company in Canada. And I'm getting a chance now to do what my passion is all about. And in July of this year, I started an executive advisory and coaching business. And so right now, I'm spending my time I'm on two different boards of companies, and I'm really enjoying that and trying to make a contribution and helping these companies grow and be successful. And I'm also a certified executive coach, so I spend a lot of time coaching CEOs and top level executives, and I try to also carve out some time in my life to work with young people, because I think I like to give back, and I benefited from that to some degree myself when I was younger through people helping me, and so I want to reciprocate and do the same thing with young people who are just starting out in their life. But most of my time I spend coaching CEOs and top level executives.
Yeah. And Jim, you have a phenomenal career and journey, and the conversation today we're gonna explore that together. All right. So we're gonna travel time together. When I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut, wearing the astronaut suit and jumping in different planet. That's probably because of my introvert personality. So in different planets seems suit better for me back then. So when you were young, Jim, what was your dream about your future, though?
Well, I think when I was young, in Canada, one of the big sports in Canada is hockey,
Ah,
and it's something that all I would say initially when I grew up, it was mostly Canadian boys that were playing. But when I had children of my own, it was boys and girls who were playing hockey. It's a great sport. You learn how to be you learn about teams and winning and losing, all the lessons that you need to learn in life. So when I was young, of course, I wanted to be a professional hockey player, and I played competitively until I was into my late teens, and never made it to the professional sport. And so I did the next best thing, and I went, and a little bit different than you. You want to be an astronaut, but I decided I wanted to be a pilot.
oh,
So I joined the Canadian military, and I went to military college in Victoria, British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada. And I learned how to be a pilot. I got commissioned as an officer, and I got my wings flying a single engine jet. And then I went from flying jets to flying tactical helicopters. And the first place that I was posted as an officer and a pilot was in Lara, West Germany. So I spent almost 5 years in Germany flying helicopters as part of the 4th Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group, which was part of the 7th U.S. Corps. And, I should tell you that one of the gentleman that was a couple of years behind me in university at military college, his name's Chris Hadfield, and he was a pilot as well. And he did go on to be quite a famous astronaut today.
oh,
And he and I went to school together. So when you said right away that you wanted to be an astronaut, I thought of Chris. And Chris is a wonderful, wonderful human being. A very skilled pilot. He went into space to the space station many times.
Oh.
And I see him sometimes here in Toronto, and he does a lot of public speaking around the world. But yeah, for me, it was, be a professional sports athlete. And then when that didn't happen, I decided to pursue my second dream, which was, become a pilot.
Ah.
And that's what I did for the first 10 years of my career.
Oh, wonderful. But then from being a pilot to what you're currently doing, like executive coaching or a chief HR officer is a huge space in between. What was the transition? Tell us about that, Jim.
Well, one of the things that I believe in life is that, your best path for success in life is to play to your strengths, your deep strengths, not what you're good at, what you're differentiated around, and play to your deep strengths and your passion. And that when you get clarity on your deep strengths and your passion, that's when work doesn't feel like work. And there's an expression I'm sure you've heard that you never have to work a day in your life if you love what you do.
Mm.
And so for me, what I began to realize early on when I was a pilot was, although I was very skilled at flying a plane, and much like my peers, because all the pilots are trained to the same standard, I found that I didn't have the same passion for flying that many of my colleagues had.
Oh.
And so I learned that you had to have both. You had to have work that played to your strengths. I had that in being a pilot, but you also had to be passionate about flying.
Oh.
And some of the people that I served with, they, when the weather was bad and we couldn't fly, they'd be upset, and I'd be saying, "Oh, that's not so bad. I can do some other things." And I learned that my real passion was learning, trying to find the answer to how to be a great leader.
Mm.
And that's kind of I've spent decades, studying the topic of leadership, trying to understand, if you're a good leader today, can you become great? And if so, how? And once you get to a much higher level of leadership, how do you stay there?
Mm.
And that's really what I've spent, almost 30 years of my life studying.
Mm.
And that's a passion for me. It plays to my strengths because I love to lead myself, but I'm also passionate about helping build and grow leaders and help shape cultures and make organizations a great place to work, because in doing that, you create opportunities for people where they can realize their own strengths and they can play to their own strengths and their own passion. And so that's really been kind of where I've spent the last 30 years, in this whole space around leadership and building and growing leaders and helping people learn about themselves and realize their potential in life.
Jim, when you were in the military and based in Germany, normally life is very very busy with a lot of works to do already, and because of that, a normal person with will be carried by life, right? And just doing the job at their strength. But back then, you realize something that not fulfilling from the inside of you because you did not work in the thing that you are passionate about. So can you tell us about how that feeling inside of you, so that if the audience listen to this conversation, if they have any moment that they know that they are not working something on something that fulfilling for them, they can have that moment of reflection and change like you did?
Yes. Yeah, of course. And I learned this. I learned this at the time. I knew that there wasn't something, it wasn't quite right for me, that I didn't feel like I was, what's the right word? On the right path, I guess, at the time. But it was a few years later that I met a researcher. I was attending a program at Stanford University. It was called the Executive Program in Organizational Change. And on the faculty was a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins and Jerry Porras, and they had just released a book, a research project called Built to Last. And the program was all about the research findings in Built to Last. And I formed a relationship with Jim Collins, and we just connected. And after a couple of years later, he invited me to participate in his very famous research, which you may have seen, which was published around the world, called Good to Great.
Yeah.
And in Good to Great, the strategy framework for the Good to Great companies was called the 3 Circles framework. Circle 1 was, and the idea was get to the intersection of these 3 circles, and that's what's going to drive your success in building your company. But the concept works at an individual level as well. So circle number 1 is, what are your genetically encoded strengths? You know, when you're born, you can be good at a lot of things, but you can only be great at a few things. And so the key in life is to discover through your successes. You have to have enough successes to understand this. You know, what strengths did you draw on? Circle 2 is, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? And circle 3 is, back on circle 2, you know, it's like, do you like to do creative work or analytical work? Do you like to build teams? Do you like to build companies? Do you like to solve problems? Whatever you get, when you get up in the morning, what are you excited about doing? And then circle 3 is, how will you make a living? And so what I learned through this research was a framework for not just building successful companies, but for building successful lives. And so the idea is get to the intersection of the 3 circles. And circles 1 and 2 are the most important, playing to your deep strengths and doing what you love to do or what you're passionate about doing. And so that became clear to me. And for me, when you get it right, and I really encourage all your listeners to, you know, I have a section in the book that I wrote on leadership. It's called Leading to Greatness, but you can also pick up Jim Collins' book called Good to Great and look at the 3 Circles framework and complete it for yourself. And if people connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to send it to them too. I'll send them the framework. But when you get it right, it's almost like you say, this is me, this is who I am. And I say to people, it fits you like your favorite piece of clothing fits you. You know, it just feels comfortable because this is who I am. This is my strengths. This is what I'm passionate about, and this is how I'm going to make a living in terms of the work that I'm going to do. And most people in life, what's the right word? They haven't done the work to figure out what their best path for success is. And if they only did the work, and this is what a lot of the coaching I do with people, once they do the work and they get clarity, then what they find is they make more of a difference in their life. And so that's, for me, I realized through my own experience, I was a very good pilot. I was very skilled at flying, but it wasn't what I loved to do. I was more interested in how people led and why were some leaders, you know, more effective than other leaders, and why would some leaders, military officers at the same rank, why were they able to build more followership and trust with the people that they led than others, you know, and so, yeah, I've made a big part of my life studying leadership and helping people become better leaders.
I'm curious about that a little bit. Was the curiosity of how and why people as good leaders, you know, like happened during that time, or it's already been happening since you were young and observing people and see why people are different?
Yeah, I think you know, it's funny. I don't remember being so focused on it until I was in my 20s. But I always remember myself, you know, growing up in sports, wanting to play a leadership role, you know, and you know, get people to focus on a common goal, you know, to help people learn new skills. And to feel good about themselves, you know, and to be positive about the opportunity that they had in life. So I was always that way inclined. But it really wasn't until the military began to teach me, you know, the importance of getting clarity in your life. You know, for me, it gave me clarity on my values. My military service made me a better person, taught me about service to my country, to others, and I learned discipline. And then after I left the military, I went in and I went into operations. I ran a business for a period of time. And while I was running a business, I did the advanced management program at Harvard, which was like a CEO preparation course. And what I found was when I came back from the advanced management program at Harvard, the CEO of the company said, we decided what we're going to move you into the chief HR officer role. And at the time, I was disappointed. I wanted to run a business, a bigger business. But he saw in me again, another insight for me, he saw in me what I never saw in myself, which was my military experience and my operational experience differentiated me in human resources more than growing up in human resources. I brought different things to the role. And he saw in me what I didn't, totally see in myself. And then once I got comfortable in the role, my impact just accelerated. I became comfortable and I began to learn it. I learned how to be a coach and how to build trust with people and how to help them be successful and how to build high performance teams and how to shape culture and all the things that you've talked to, Dave Allrook about and Marshall Goldsmith about. I've been out there as a practitioner trying to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jim, your boss back there was able to see in you, what's something that you couldn't see in yourself, right? So he was able to, he told you to take a role as a chief HR officer instead of, going to the different role. So did you ever ask him why did he see you differently like that?
Yeah, I did. I had a conversation with him about 6 months after, and I said to him, because he knew that when he asked me, he could see in my face that I was disappointed, that I wanted to run this bigger business in pharmaceutical research. And he knew I was disappointed, and he said, trust me, this is going to work out great for you. And then 6 months later, we had dinner together, and I said to him, what was it that you saw in me that had you move me into this role versus the other role? And he said, Jim, I think you would have been a good president of a business unit. But I think you'll be a great chief HR officer. And then he said he just thought that I was more differentiated, being the chief HR officer and helping him as the CEO build a culture and drive a talent agenda and help develop executives, because he knew he needed to do that to win in the marketplace. And I think he was right. I think I would have been, not to say good is bad, but I would have been good. But I brought my experience in the military, my experience in running a business and in operations into human resources. And I was able to take a much more practical and focused approach. Like I spoke the language of the executives running the business, because I'd been there and I'd run a business myself. And so they trusted me and I trusted them. And it was just a wonderful experience for me. And I'm grateful to him for seeing that in me.
Wow. And Jim, you spent years in the space of human resource, right? So it means that you also love the work that you do, and that space has changed, significantly over the past decades or so. So, tell us why did you, stay in that space for that long, still passionate about that?
Well, I think when I participated with Jim Collins in his Good to Great research, I actually worked on 3 different projects with Jim Collins. I did his first and most successful, most well-known research project was Good to Great. And he's a social scientist. He spent his whole life studying, if you're good today, can you become great tomorrow? More not at the leadership level, but more at the company level. His second project was a smaller project called How the Mighty Fall. and it was published globally as well. And the third one was called Great by Choice. And so what I learned, first of all, I think there's many good management thinkers in the world today, and you've met a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But I think Jim Collins is one of the best, one of the very best, and he's in a league of his own. Most curious person I've ever met in my life. Mm. And he takes, and his research is very disciplined. He starts with results. He studies two companies, same industry. Each has an opportunity to outperform. One does, one doesn't. And he tries to understand what did the company that outperformed do differently, to achieve superior results over, 10 or 20 or 30 years. And what I learned from him, changed the way that I think about high performance forever. Mm. And he taught me that the companies, the good to great transition companies, the companies that outperform their competitors, that they start with people. And he had an expression, it was first who, then what. Mm. And the most important thing in our life are the choices we make about people. Our spouses, our partners, our friends, the people who we bring into organizations. Mm. And so getting the right people around you and then getting the wrong people away from you, right? Because both are needed. Yeah. Is one of the signature qualities of the best leaders. And so because I began to understand that through the research, I began to understand that in an organization as the chief human resources officer, working with the chief executive officer of the company, the CEO of the company, that you have a lot of influence, to make a difference and drive impact. And so the more I understood about what it took to outperform, starting with people first. I mean, there's other things that you have to get right, of course. I just began to continue to refine my skills and my experience in that space because I loved it, and I saw that when you did it right, it not only made a difference at the individual level, but it made a difference at the team level and at the company level. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Jim, what you say about first who then what, right? That is something that really struggling me over the past years working in this market, because I also believe that when you find somebody that is suitable for the organization, we bring the person in and we create the role later. But majority of the practices here, like when a person leaves, then there's a role vacant, then organization and HR start to fill the role, right? Instead of create a role for the future. So how, in your experience, and then working with Jim Collins also on that, how can we convince organizations to really focus on a first who and then what methodology?
Yeah. Well, I think if more CEOs and more executives understood that, hiring the right people, I've come to believe that people are not your biggest constraint to growth. The right people are. The right people is all about fit. You want to hire people who share your values, who are inspired by the purpose of what you're trying to do as a company or a team, people who want to learn and grow, people who are open to change, right? Who have a passion for your customer. Mm-hmm. Like, these are the kind of people that you can build your company around. And the wrong people are people who don't share your values, or are not inspired by your purpose, and who kill the spirit of the team. They take energy out of the room. Like, we've all been around people like that. They take energy away from the room, and so the role of the leader in that case is to move them. They're probably not in the right organization. They can maybe be successful somewhere else, but it's not going to happen from them there. So I think the first thing that companies have to do is hire on fit. And the second thing that I think companies have to do is help people learn and grow and build a successful career. Like, people are, if you can create opportunities for people, they'll stay with you.
So learn So high fit and then help them to learn, grow, and build successful career, and then they'll stay with us,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and help build their career with you, right?
Okay.
And I think so promote from within. In other words, to the extent that you can. You can't do it 100% of the time, but you can create a culture where you bring in really good, smart, talented people who share your values and are inspired by your purpose and who are team players, and then help them be really successful in the job they're in. Because I think that's the first thing. Like, being successful where you are is your springboard for your next opportunity. So be successful there, and then that creates opportunities for you. And then we have to teach companies and managers to promote from within and help people build rewarding careers with you. And I think when you do that, then you have consistency and continuity of talent over time.
Wow.
And I think, by the way, I think there's a lot of companies all around the world, in Europe, in North America, and in Asia, that understand this and are doing it.
Yep.
It's not like nobody's doing it. There's quite a few companies that are doing it. It's just not the majority practice yet, but it's changing.
Yeah. As long as there's companies leading the way, then and show success, then other company will start to follow and stuff and create the trend.
Yeah. Yep. And why is it important? It's important because I think there's a value chain around building a great company, right? It starts with the right people and the right employee experience, so that people choose to work and stay working in the organization because they love the company, they like the leader they're working for, they like their colleagues, they're doing meaningful work. So you create that great employee experience. That then creates a great customer experience. And that great customer experience then creates strong financial outcomes.
Wow.
So I think it's that value chain, starting with people and culture and employee experience, driving customer experience, driving financial outcomes. That's the winning formula for companies.
And that is something that we can always control, right? Because it's our people.
I think so. I think we have more control than we think we have. Yeah.
And Jim, there's a lot of people in our listeners, in the space for human resources, right? And they have big ambitions to become, like a great leader, a great executive in this space. And since you've been there, you're on top of the organization, large organization, as a chief human resource officer. What would be the advice that you can give to them, so that what kind of skills, what kind of preparation they need to prepare now, so that they can equip themselves to get into that role in the future?
Yeah. So there's five. I think there's five principles, right, that the best leaders embrace. And I wrote a book about this that came out in March of this year. It's called Leading to Greatness. But principle number one is for anyone who wants to be a successful leader, it's clarity of, and I'll talk about human resources in a minute, but it's clarity of your personal values and your purpose in life. That's the foundation for building success for you, for anyone. Be clear on your values, be committed to your values, and be also clear on what kind of difference you want to make in your life. So that's clarity of values and purpose is principle one. Principle two is what we talked about before. It's playing to your strengths and passion every day, right? And never deviating from that. Principle three is, make the right people decisions. So right people, right seat on the, strong teams. Once you get, and you can see how being clear on your values and purpose and being clear on your purpose and your passions and strengths helps you decide who the right people are. Right?
Yep.
Then once you get the right people with you, then the leader has to be fully engaged in with their work, and then they have to build engagement on their team. And then the last principle is being disciplined around your drive for results and for relentless drive for improvement. And I've always believed that building culture is one of the leader's critical roles. And that, you build culture one team at a time, and the team is the performance unit of the company. So those five principles help you be the best leader you can be. And then in human resources, I think, first of all, for anyone who's out there who works in human resources, I think this is our moment in time, to make even more of a difference. Companies around the world, on the other side of the pandemic, have begun to realize that the human resource function in companies are important, very important, and that people and culture are critical to sustaining performance over time. So that's the first thing, that you're in a good space, and you should, that's the first thing. Second thing is, you have to look through the lens of the CEO, right, to be effective in human resources. There's a lot of things you can do, but you need to focus on doing what the chief executive officer of the company needs done. And you have to learn how to be a trusted advisor to the person that you're supporting. And you have to learn how to build trust. And one of the things that I encourage all human resource leaders to do is to get certified as a coach. And a coach, it's not just a business skill, it's a life skill. Learning how to coach others, it will improve all of your relationships in life. Your relationships with your spouse or partner, with your children, but also your relationships in the workplace. So I think becoming certified as a coach, if you're a people leader, I encourage the same thing. But for human resources, absolutely, you have to get certified. If you're a people leader, it's a really good thing to do too. And only good things will come from it. And when you care about, organizations want people to care about them, but people aren't going to care about the organization until the organization or the leader cares about them.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact,
Yep.
So, but for me, my path to chief HR officer began as a military pilot. I learned discipline. Then I went into operations. I learned about the role that leaders play. I learned how to build teams. Then I moved from operations into human resources later in my career. And I think that helped differentiate me.
Jim, I want to say congratulations on your book, because
Thank you.
a lot of my executive friends, by the time of retiring, there's a few things that they regret not doing, and one of that is not writing the book earlier to share their experience and stories. So you wrote a book through your years of research on leaders and stuff like that. So tell us how the journey that leading you to write that book. Please share that with us.
Yeah, so I all my career I've been curious about. It's a very competitive world out there, right?
Yes.
You know this from all the work that you do. And our leaders and listeners, all the people listening, know how it's, to compete and win and build a successful company that stands the test of time over the years, over decades. It's hard to do. So I spent my life looking at two things. What's the best research on high performance? And I've talked about some of that tonight with Jim Collins. But I studied Jim Collins. I studied Dave Ulrich. To some extent, Marshall Goldsmith. I also looked at some of the research that Patrick Lencioni had done on high performance teams. John Cotter did some really interesting work on change. So I met John Cotter when I was at Harvard, so I got to know him. So I looked at what's the best, most practical research that leaders can, if they understood, could help build more successful companies. That's one part of it. And then the other part of it was I spent 30 years working with leaders, and I was trying to understand what the best leaders do differently. So the book puts together the best research on high performance with over 30 years of observation of what the top executive leaders understand and live, the principles that they understand and live every day to drive more impact in their life. And that's what the book is about. And I've always believed that it's never too late to learn and grow in life. And that high performance is a personal choice. If you want to drive more impact in your life, The only person who can make that decision is you or me. I can make it for myself. I can't make it for anybody else, right? But you
Right.
can make it for you. And that success is cumulative. And it's the small changes in life that lead to the big difference.
Mm.
So the book provides a framework for people to build it gives them a step-by-step process to build a customized development plan that helps them get to a better place.
Mm.
And that's what the book is about. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to, I'm not as tied up in, running a big corporation anymore with, 50 to 40,000 employees, but I can spend the time and just help people, get clarity. And for those people who want to make more of a difference in their life, I'm trying to help them do that.
Mm. What take you so long to release this book, Jim? This is needed.
It is. Well, Jim Collins had always said to me I should write a book on leadership because I'm not an academic. I'm not a PhD in a university. I'm somebody that's out there trying to make things work, right?
Mm.
And I was fortunate to meet Jim Collins in my life, and he changed the way that I think. And I met, of course, Dave Allrock. Dave Allrock's a wonderful person, very smart.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Pfeffer, I met at Stanford. As I said, John Cotter and Patrick Lencioni, a woman by the name of Dr. Laura Delazona, who's an expert in psychological safety. I've learned from all of these people, but it wasn't until the pandemic happened that, my wife Patty works in television, so we get up at 3:30 in the morning, and I make her coffee and get her set for the day, and then I had a couple of hours before everybody else was starting to work, and that's when I wrote the book. I wrote the book from 4 in the morning, excuse me, until 6 in the morning in 2020, and then I finished the manuscript in December of 2020, and then had to find a publisher, and it was published a year later. So, yeah.
Congratulations on that one. And it's very nice of you wake up at the same time with Patty and then prepare for her coffee. So she would be very happy for that.
Yeah, exactly.
and,
Yeah.
and Jim, if it's a framework, it's a 5 principle that you shared earlier, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. If you can pick one chapter in the book that you love most and you share a little bit more on that one, what would be that chapter, Jim?
I think the one chapter that most people relate to is the chapter around getting personal clarity around strengths and passion. And because a lot of people, they go to university, they get a degree, and they just take their first job, and the first job may or may not play to their strengths and passion. And so it's through your experiences, like the way that you get clear on strengths and passion is you look at your successes in life, and you ask yourself, what strengths did I draw on, and what work was I passionate about doing? Why was I so successful and so happy in that moment? And so the nice thing about the book is, in the back of the book, it has coaching exercises on each of the 5 principles, because usually people are stronger on some of the principles than others. And so what I did is I put some exercises, some frameworks, some exercises that people can work through themselves to get clarity. And it's all about clarity and focus, right? So, but I would say, helping people, especially young people, early on, get clear on strengths and passion, that's probably one of the areas that can have the most impact in terms of somebody's trajectory in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So getting clarity and and the passion will be is a chapter that you recommend, and that a lot of people find resonate about, and like your form.
Yeah. Exactly. I have a coaching guide. If any of your listeners want a copy of it, it's a PDF version. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to send it to them.
Absolutely.
And if anybody needs any help or support, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help in any way I can to help people be successful.
Wow, how beautiful. Jim, I have 2 other questions first before we end the conversation today. The first question is about thinking, and my wife and I are really passionate about helping people to improve their ability to think because we believe that our thinking capability these days is decreasing, not increasing, right? So every chance we can talk to an expert like you are who involve a lot of deep thinking and who've been around with a lot of great mind people around the world, right? We ask this question. So Jim, how have you been helping yourself to expand your ability to think?
First of all, I would say that the thing that I've learned the most working with executives is that high performance, like being at your peak performance
Mm,
in life, it's not about time management or getting organized. It's about energy management.
mm,
And there's an expression in life that says, life is a marathon, pace yourself, right? And I think that's a path to be good. What I've found is that the best leaders out there think about it differently. They think life is a series of sprints followed by recovery. And so I would say to you that most executives and people that I know do their best thinking only if they're very good at managing their energy levels and they're able to recover their energy levels when their energy levels are low or depleted.
mm,
And so there's all kinds of other things that go into, I believe that having downtime, recovery time is productive time. And there's a wonderful expression about, it's called the balcony and the dance floor. And, in the dance of life, it's very difficult to affect changes when you're in the dance, with someone else, right? Because things are happening too fast. You need perspective. And I think getting perspective helps, and that means you have to go to the balcony and look down
mm,
and see what's working and what's not working to make a change.
mm,
So, to be a better thinker and to do more productive thinking, you have to go to the balcony and reflect,
mm,
and you need to also have your energy levels high
mm,
so that you're not depleted, right? You're rested and you're sharp
mm.
and you're feeling mentally, physically, and spiritually fit.
Mm. So have a maintain the high energy level and then go to the balcony and look down so that you can regain the perspective, right? Beautiful.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
If we go to the balcony and look down, it's a metaphor, so a lot of us would not understand what it is, Jim.
yeah.
Would
It
there be
is.
any specific example for us to know, okay, what is that going out to the balcony and look down, though?
Well, I'll give you an example. Like
Mm,
a leader goes through the day and goes through the week and goes through the month. Just doing things constantly, right? They're constantly in motion, in meetings, out of meetings, sending emails, doing this, doing that. But the real question they should be asking themselves is, have I been effective in how I've used my time in the last 30 days? Well, when you're in the middle of the crisis or the urgent stuff, it's hard for you to ask that question. So that's kind of like when you're on the dance floor. When the metaphor, the balcony and dance floor, the dance floor is doing your day-to-day stuff in life, right?
ah,
And then to get better at your day-to-day stuff that you do in life, you need to get to a different place.
mm,
Go up to the balcony where it's quiet.
mm,
You're not answering emails. You're not doing all these things, and reflect on as a leader, what's working and what's not working.
ah,
And so that's really what it's about. It's about the balcony and the dance floor is a metaphor around driving personal change. And when you don't take the time to reflect and get perspective
ah.
on what's working and not working in your life, chances are you're not going to get better.
Chance we're gonna be dancing all the time, but not.
You may not be dancing better, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. You've got it.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. So, which means would the coaching skill, the coaching guide that you share for the audience, would be helping them for them to have a better view at the balcony.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for our
Yes.
listeners, please connect with Jim and so that he can share with you the coaching guide by his book and so that you can learn for his 30 years of research on his effective and high performing leaders and Jim, I will ask the last question for our conversation today. All right. So we knew your when you were young, you want to become an athlete, hockey athlete, right? But and then you move to the military, you move into the HR space and being on top of the leading a very big organization as a chief HR officer. Now you're the author and executive coach, helping CEOs and leaders to improve their life. So we're gonna head into the future a little bit here. Is there anything that Jim is working on that you are exciting? You want to share with me and the audience so we can celebrate with you in advance?
Well, I think the I'm very interested right now in the role that culture plays
Mhm.
in building great companies. And so I just recently became um, I was recently admitted into what's called the Forbes Coaches Council. It's Forbes magazine. It's an online magazine,
Mm,
and I just wrote my first article on culture, on the leader's role in building culture. And so I'm doing a fair bit more research now around the leader's responsibility in building culture and changing culture,
mm,
and that's kind of where I'm putting my focus right now. And and because you know what, you, whether you have a good culture, one thing for sure is you have a culture. Whether it's a good culture or a bad culture is it has to be determined.
yeah.
And most employees will tell you whether it's good or bad based on the experience that they have every day.
Mm,
And so, and I think the leader's role leader has two big roles. One is drive value to customers,
mm,
and the other is build a high performing culture where people love to work there.
yep.
And so with the pandemic and coming out the other side of the pandemic and what's the kind of leadership that's going to help companies build great cultures that people want to be part of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm focused right now.
Jim, we want your works to be completed as soon as possible so you can share with leaders around the world how to build a better culture. Because to us, to many of us, work is very important part of life, right? If we can have a
Yes.
job that make us happy, so
Yeah.
we can go home also happy at home, having great conversation at the dining table, and that will transfer the energy and the hope for the next generation, which are our children and so
Yes.
equip them to look at the workplace in a very positive lens and getting there
Yes.
in a very positive mood and like readiness also. So please do that and please do that fast. The culture is a very fascinating piece that leaders, many leaders, really lack of building actually, and they need help to get to that's that stage.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, this podcast that you do is helping people understand the importance of this. And, understanding is the first step. Understanding is the first step towards comprehension, and comprehension leads to behavior change. So you're playing a big role in this. So, congratulations to you for the 457 conversations that you've had,
Thanks a lot,
that you
Jim.
share. It's fantastic. Good for you. I hope you're proud of yourself. You and your wife are proud of yourself. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for being so kind to accept our invitation to join and share your story and advices to our listener of the program. I really appreciate
My
it.
It's my pleasure. All the best to everyone, and I wish everyone happiness and health and success in life.
We wish everything best to you and your family also, Jim. And I look forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
you in Vietnam in 1 to 2 years' time. All right.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Please tell Patty that we say hello to her also.
I will do that. I'll
Okay.
share that with her this evening. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
All the
very much.
best to you.
All the best to you.
Okay.
Bye bye for
Okay.
now.
Take care.
Bye, Jim.
Bye bye.